everyone, and welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast. I'm Obs, and this week I'm joined by Lecky and Veg as we continue our rewatch of season 1 of Bridgerton. Sadly, Beans can't be with us this week, but I'm sure she's out there with us in spirit. But first of all, Lecky, happy birthday for this week.
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yep. What a Barb, what a birthday.
What about your birthday? Oh, see, I should have said that to you, but I didn't.
It's fine. I wish myself a happy birthday with what a Barb. It's fine.
What star sign are you?
She's Cancer.
All feels all the time.
She's my darling crab, which maybe isn't that flattering to say, actually. If anyone is wondering if you're a star sign aficionado, Lecky, you're a Cancer.
Yes.
Which sounds quite horrible to say to someone. You're a Cancer. Veg, you're a Taurus.
With a sound.
I was going to call her our dearly departed Beans. She's not dead. She's just not on the call. She's alive and well. She's a Pisces, and I'm an Aries, like Pen. So, and I'm also a redhead, like Pen. So we've got a little bit of a mix here on the pod. But yeah, happy birthday, Lek. We love you dearly.
Today is also my dog's birthday. She's also a Cancer.
That's more important than your birthday. Forget what we said about you.
Yeah.
How old is she?
She's 10 today.
Double digits. Well, by the time you'll hear this, it won't be the birthday anymore. But happy birthday.
Thank you.
But yeah, we're very sad that Beans can't be with us. But obviously you've got Lek and Veg here. And as I said, we're going to be breaking down everything Pen and Colin from season 1, episode 4, An Affair of Honour. We're already at a halfway point in season 1. We're cracking through it. But before we get started, Lecky, take us through the breaking crumbs of the week.
So, The Shape of Things Pro Shot, it sounds like it's coming soon. We don't have a date yet, but we'll let you know as soon as we find out, because I know many of us are excited to see that.
Yeah, Lecky, you never got to see it, did you?
No, yeah, so I'm very, very, very excited.
We believe it's going to be streaming through Original Theatre, which is a digital theatre company in the UK. I've watched loads of their stuff before. They're really good, so it's so exciting. But we'll keep you updated. Some
positivity for this week. Both Nicola and Luke were nominated and won a poll on the Red Carpet Fashion Awards website. Nicola for her outfit that she wore to the Barbie premiere in London, and Luke for the outfit that he wore to the Wimbledon event. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so congratulations to them, our fashionable stars.
You know, we did our part in spreading the news, and they are our victors, but they did look amazing, so well deserved.
Yeah. And then Shondaland has announced that they're releasing a new book titled The Bridgerton Guide to Entertaining. So if any of you would like to do some entertaining, I'm sure you'll want to get your hands on this book and entertain like a Bridgerton or maybe a Featherington, depending on your style.
I wonder if we're going to have another Colin recipe. There was a Bridgerton cookbook a few years ago, wasn't there?
Right.
And I'm sure that Colin had it was like Colin's cornbread or something.
Right, and Penelope's was an omelette.
Penelope's omelette.
Because it's yellow, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see if this book has any insights about their characters.
Any tidbits.
Yeah. We just want to continue to announce our support for the strike that's going on. Mm-hmm. On Deadline, they also shared a petition that a makeup artist started to support below-the-line workers. They want to boost unemployment wages. I believe it's primarily here in California and LA, where I live, for below-the-line workers, many of whom have been out of work for months because the studios kind of anticipated that this strike was going to happen and, didn't start new projects. So they've been struggling for a while and are continuing to struggle as the strike goes on.
We're going to link some resources in our show notes and over on our Instagram, I think. Mm-hmm. So any ways that you can financially support, we're going to link to that. But obviously, if you can't financially support the strikers at this time, there's still tons that you can do to show your support. So we'll put all that information in and we'll keep bringing you updates and ways that you can continue to show your support.
Yeah. That's it for this week. But yeah, we'll keep you updated about the strike and everything else. And hopefully that's resolved soon.
Yeah, hope so. Thank you so much, Lek. Let's get started on the episode. Now it's time to get started on our rewatch, and I think we're all looking forward to this episode because this is it. If you can't tell, we're all very big fans of the Barb. This is our moment, guys. This is what we've been waiting for. It's Barb time, everyone.
Penelope, what's a Barb? What's a Barb?
Cake for everybody.
So, ladies, gentlemen, and those who don't fit those categories, this is it. This is our namesake.
Barbkin.
Guys, gals, and non-binary pals,
Yeah.
We are here. We're so excited. You know what? It's been quite a few episodes. Episode 2 and episode 3 were not one for the Polin fans, but I think it's starting to pick up the pace. Whether that will be like picking up pace like a train running off the tracks and crashing into a wall in the next few episodes, perhaps. But, we're along for the ride. But Lady Veg, Are you here? Can you give us an overall episode summary?
Prince Friedrich attempts to win over Daphne. What a Barb. Lady Featherington tries to arrange a match for Marina. What a Barb. Eloise decides to try to uncover Lady Whistledown's identity. What a Barb. The Ton attends the sensuous Trowbridge Ball. Trowbridge Ball, which sets pulses racing. What a Barb. After Daphne and Simon are found in a compromising position, Anthony challenges Simon to a duel, and Daphne announces
10 duel commandments.
she will marry him, meaning Simon. What a Barb.
Not Anthony. It's not Game of Thrones. Thank you, Lady Veg. That was profound.
Brilliant.
That meant a lot to me. Is everyone ready? Grab your seconds. We're going for a duel.
You would be my second
jump
off,
in.
just so you know.
Thank you. That's really mean to Lecky. I mean, I suppose in terms of proximity, like I'm like 10 minutes away.
I don't want to fight. It's fine. I'm good. It'll upset my stomach.
To be fair, Lecky,
Yeah.
you're far too sweet to be in a fight.
I'm gonna run away.
You're the doctor on hand who turns away, so you have to
Yeah.
plausible with deniability.
Yeah. I think you maybe be like Will, like you try and like talk him out of it, but like give him somewhere to stay. You know what? I'd start my own duel with the other second.
Great, okay.
I'd be like, we're having it out.
You secretly arranged the duel just so you could take on your second.
Or that, or to get the Viscountcy myself. Yeah, I'm going to take care of the entire thing. But the episode we're starting.
Moving on.
Our first glance of our beloved Penelope this episode is when she's coming down the staircase. She's heading off to the market for the day with Eloise, but a visibly upset Marina kind of rushes past her. It's all gone to shit with Lady Featherington. Pen kind of calls out, turns around, asks her if Marina wants her to stay home, but Marina shakes her head and kind of Pen decides that she needs to get to the market. So that's where we're meeting her this episode. Because no matter what is going on at Featherington House, Pen still has some shopping to do with Elle. So the girls are at, I think, is it like a feather stall, an accessory stall?
Girls trip.
I think it's feathers.
I don't know what's going on. Selling feathers.
The first of 2 feather stalls.
There's a lot of feather stalls. I mean, when the Featheringtons are in the ton, I suppose it's kind of necessary.
Yep.
I like that Elle ponders why women would wear feathers in their hair. And I'm like, Pen always wears feathers in her hair. Like, that's a proper drag. But
No
hey.
filter. No filter for Eloise. Also, in the scene, you see that Penelope is reflected in a mirror right behind Eloise when they just start talking about Lady Whistledown's identity, and this kind of hints at, Pen's dual identity.
Nice. Yeah, we hit on that in the last episode, but very cool.
Yeah, it's very sneaky.
I also really like, I'm not sure about you guys, but I like Pen's outfit. I think she looks like a French fantasy.
Oh, I think she looks lovely. Lecky, do you have French fancies in America?
No.
Oh, no, you don't know what we're talking about then?
I have no idea.
Oh, God. Hang on. This is very important cultural stuff. I just need to send this picture of a French fancy over to Leck.
If there's not, footage of Colin eating one, I probably haven't seen it before.
You know what? He would be all over a French fancy, and he'd pick the lemon one every time because it's yellow.
Oh,
Yeah.
she does kind of look like that.
It's pretty cute. It's pretty nice.
But that's what she looks like.
Yeah, I agree. She
Yeah.
does look like a French fancy.
And her eyebrows look good. I don't know, her lips look a little darker as well.
Yeah, she's got the vibe going on.
Listeners, see for yourself.
I just want to say it's so tragic that she looks cute in this dress in this scene, and then they repurpose this in season 2 into one of the worst dresses of all time.
I hate it
Okay.
so much. I hate it so much.
This is repurposed people, so I think listeners might be fond of this. If the phrase Beauty and the Beast replica scene means anything to you guys, listeners, you'll know what we're talking about. It's where we've got Colin in a kind of beast, what's the beast named? Adam? In a beast Adam colour suit, a nice royal blue, and then you've got Pen in this fetching yellow dress that's been slightly repurposed. Now,
Fetching?
I like it as a picture, but I know it's one of Officer's least favourite scenes, and you're not
same.
Lecky.
I struggle to watch that scene. You know, I think I don't like the look in 204 is because she just looks so miserable throughout the entire scene.
It's the most painful Polin scene, in my opinion. We could discuss that more in season 2. But
Also, I think it has 36 bows on it, but the good news is it doesn't have 36 bows on it here. She looks cute.
Adorable.
I'm digging her look
Yeah,
here.
she looks cute. Moving on, I guess. What happens in this scene, Officer?
What happens? I'll tell you what happens. Don't you worry, Veg. So Elle is going off on one of her monologues that we love. She's going on about how women have to squawk for men's attention and how everyone's fawning over Daphne because of her prospects with Prince Friedrich. And, she's starting to get worried that, not just that she's jealous of Daphne, but that she's worried that attentions are going to turn to her once Daphne's married off. And, you know, it's quite sweet because Penelope's just kind of listening in. She's like very clearly amused by everything that Eloise has said. But then the conversation kind of takes a turn back to Lady Whistledown and how Eloise kind of admires Lady Whistledown because she is surely living, you know, she's this brilliant businesswoman in Eloise's mind, and there's no way that she's kind of waiting on the edge of ballrooms waiting for a man to notice her, which... Eloise, my love.
Well, bad logic as well. Like, if you're that busy dancing, you wouldn't have time to notice that.
That's a good point, you know. And wouldn't have that made the whole thing a lot quicker to figure out had she been like, maybe Lady Whistledown is someone who is very quiet and observant, like the person next to me who's listening without saying a word.
Oh, well, she's young.
Well, I mean, she makes a lot of observations, like similar observations in this episode. Eloise, she goes and breaks into the servant's room, and the servant starts laughing at her, like, when would we possibly have the time? It obviously has to be somebody of means who has a bunch of free time. So Eloise is not quite there in her investigation yet.
No, she's young.
To notice things like that.
But look, I mean, we've all gone down some theories about season 3. So absolutely no disrespect, Elle. We get the spiralling. And, you know, Penelope's very clearly amused by it. She says it's, you know, quite the life that you've imagined for her, Elle. I like that she's like very deliberately non-committal in everything she says. She's not directly lying about who Lady Whistledown is and isn't, but then she's not really saying anything either way, so she's kind of staying neutral, you know, keeping out of the limelight a little bit. But then, you know, Eloise decides that she needs to meet Lady Whistledown.
She'd make a good lawyer.
She would. She's like...
Strategic.
Yeah, she's got a good poker face, has our Penelope. Eloise decides they need to meet Lady Whistledown, joy of joys. They can achieve a life just like hers, if only, eh? And again, staying very evasive, non-committal. It's quite a playful moment, especially if this is the first time you're watching it. But once you know that Penelope is Lady Whistledown, it kind of definitely adds that extra layer to the whole scene, where we know that Penelope is just absolutely fobbing her friend off. While still really seeking her approval, you can tell that she really likes listening to Eloise's praise and just kind of soaking it up.
Like you said, Pen is being evasive here, but yeah, she does also just seem very amused about the life that Eloise has pictured for Lady Whistledown, and Elle claims that she wants to, quote, fly like Lady Whistledown rather than settle down like Daphne, and yet we see that Pen in reality isn't flying, and also she has no hope of settling down, so really neither option is available to her. But she still seems to be in good spirits about it. But yeah, she seems amused.
I've always had a fondness for this scene because it's just so lovely to see them, you know, walking together and laughing together, and it's just really sweet.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is that kind of undercurrent where Pen very cryptically says Lady Whistledown's identity is quite protected, you know, a bit suspicious. How do you know that, Pen? And she also very conveniently can't help Elle with her search for Lady Whistledown because she's too busy. There's a nice little throwback here to the earlier episodes where Elle kind of says you should pretend you've got what Marina had, so, you know, you can come and help me with everything, and playing on that idea about what Portia said about Marina's condition being catching. And then Pen insists, you know, she'd love nothing more in this world than to help figure out who Lady Whistledown is, but she's going to be by Marina's side as the cousin returns into society, which I don't really get because I think Marina has already returned to society like 3 times in the last episode. But whatever, Pen, we'll let it go. But she assures her that she's going to cheer her on in her endeavours.
Yeah, it's a cute scene.
Yeah, it's very cute. But I think, and I know we'll come on to this in future episodes, do you know when we think about what Eloise is so upset about when she finds out that Penelope is Lady Whistledown? I think it's a lot about, you know, the fact that she's used her for information, she's told all her secrets, she sabotaged her relationship with Theo, all those kind of elements. I think it's these moments mostly.
Yeah.
I agree with your point in that the worst thing that Pen has done in terms of their friendship is that she's let Eloise go off on this search and be so excited and talk about how much she admires Lady Whistledown and wants to find her, and, you know, it's basically like taken over her life and also inspired her and secretly been her best friend the whole time. So it is a betrayal.
It's just these little lies that kind of underpin so many of their interactions that is probably the bigger betrayal, and it's kind of embarrassing as well for Eloise.
We should also point out for book fans, there's a little moment in this scene where Eloise picks out, I believe it's a white feather quill, and that's kind of a nod to the cover of To Sir Philip with Love. The quill she picks up looks very similar to the one on the cover.
It's huge, isn't it? It's very elaborate.
Yeah.
So we've got a nice little, for the Eloise fans amongst you, which we would happily count ourselves, we've got a cheeky little nod in there for you. So that's where we're finding Pen at the beginning of this episode. But let's go see where Colin is. So we're going to head off to a boxing match, which is taking place in this creepy, dingy warehouse where we're going to keep coming back to throughout the season. There's a fight between Will and Billy Gillespie. There's a lot of Saphony drama going on. But is Colin here? Yes, he is. He's hanging out with Simon, Benedict, and none other than Lord Featherington. So we get this very brief little moment, very rare moment too, where we've got a future son and father-in-law standing right next to each other, and they're both alive. How wonderful.
For our listeners who are doing a rewatch with us, you should take note of this scene because there is a similar one at the end of this season that kind of stands out.
We'll be coming back here.
And we see Lord Featherington, who I appreciate his acting, but whenever I see him, I'm just reminded of all the sketches in Armstrong and Miller, because he did a sketch show with another comedian in the UK, and it reminds me of that. But yes, he is in lovely blue with a little yellow cravat, and Colin's all about the cravats, and the yellow ones will surely see a lot of them. Another Featherington who we see in this kind of deep blue. We also see that with the second Lord Featherington, Jack, in season 2, or should I say Sir Leon.
Sir Leon, there he is, for the Merlin fans with you.
Yeah.
With poor Lecky, she's just listening to this and it's all going over her head. Merlin fans, we've got you.
Yeah, so yes, I don't think that's much of a coincidence. Also, I enjoy Will's outfit in this scene, which is no outfit at all. And also, I was at my parents' house watching this, and my mum was very taken with Will.
Look, we can't blame her.
Yeah.
She's only human.
Sorry to Colin in this scene.
That's all right. I like your little nod, because season 3 we've seen Colin in a few dark blues himself.
Yes.
He's walking in the footsteps.
It's his trajectory.
He's on his path.
Yeah.
Though this blue is almost kind of purple.
And interesting, because purple is very much about sort of the colour of Richard. He's got a purple waistcoat as well. That's very much like wealth.
That's a good point.
But in this scene, Lord Featherington's losing all of his money.
Fake it till you make it. And you know what? Colin's having a lovely time at the boxing match, which means we're having a lovely time at the boxing match. He's in the background kind of cheering Will along. There's not much else going on in the scene, but we can appreciate Will fighting.
Colin is having so much fun at the boxing match that he comes home and decides to have more fun. So in this next scene, you'll see him sparring with Gregory in the background of all the family is talking. Very cute.
It's very sweet.
They really want to hammer home that he's going to be a good dad in this series.
But you know what? I think that is definitely what they're doing. But I also think it's just a very nice moment between the siblings.
Yeah. And also it serves to sort of juvenilise a little bit Colin and sort of highlight his youth, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Again, they're matching. They've both got the waistcoat and the billowy white shirt, and he is very much with that side, isn't he?
He's taken his jacket off, so we're going super casual here. But I do think that it's a good point about what you said about it kind of infantilising him a little bit, because I think we think of ABC as a very solid unit, but I always feel sorry for little Greg on the side, who doesn't ever really seem to get a look in with his big brothers. All the sisters are kind of gathered together a little bit more. Especially in terms of their age. But Gregory, he's so young, and I bet all he wants in the world is to be involved with his older brothers. So I think it's very sweet that kind of Colin has, gone to this exciting boxing match. He's come back home and he's sharing that moment with Greg, giving him a little rundown so he feels involved.
Yeah, it's cute.
Because we've said before, there's a big age gap between A, B and C. And I think Colin would have probably experienced that himself, kind of being left out of his older brothers. And I think it's maybe a little nod as well. I don't know, have you both read all the way to book 8?
No, ma'am.
Got a no from Lek and a no from Veg. I'll whip them into shape, don't worry, listeners. So in On the Way to the Wedding, which is book 8, Colin plays a pretty big role in Gregory's book. There's a lot about Gregory looking up to his older siblings, a kind of inspiration. And so I think it's a nice little callback to that dynamic, which hopefully, fingers crossed, in the year of our Lord 2059, when season 8 finally is released, we'll get to see this on screen.
Cute.
I also wanted to note in this scene, we also have Hyacinth delivering her first prophetic question, what about the Duke? Which we see revisited in season 2 when she mentions, what about the sister? And it'll be interesting to see if they have another callback in season 3. What about Penelope?
Oh, I'd love that. Because in season 2 she says something like, is Kate going to live with us or something? Hyacinth knows what's going on. So, very cute sibling bonding moments aside, are you both ready? It's late that evening. We're heading off. Prepare yourself for scandal. We're off to the Trowbridge Ball.
Are you ready?
Penelope.
I'm a Barbie girl.
So Lady Whistledown comes back and she's going to give us a bit of warning that we should probably take heed of as well.
Some may call her celebrations too provocative, and I would caution any young lady from getting caught up in the sensual nature of her faith.
I don't think it's just the young ladies that we're going to have to be worrying about getting a bit het at this ball. Since we're on the topic of books, book fans might actually recognise the Trowbridge Ball, because this is adapted from the first book, The Duke and I. And Penelope and Colin even dance together at the ball in the book. But before you all get too excited though, it sounds as though Colin didn't quite have the time that we hoped he would. And Lady Whistledown even throws in a little comment that he actually danced with all 3 Featherington sisters.
And the most dashing Bridgerton did not appear to be charmed by his fate.
So it's a little bit scathing. But let's see if Show Colin has a slightly better time at the Trowbridge Ball with Penelope. You know, it's quite a beloved ball, isn't it? It stands out. Do you think we're going to go back to Trowbridge in season 3? Would you like a little Barb 2.0?
Well, of course I'd want a Barb 2.0.
Well, spoiler alert.
Yeah, we're getting one.
Spoiler alert to our listeners. The Trowbridge Ball was filmed on location at Hatfield House. And thanks to Beans' Crumbs, we know that they returned to Hatfield House in season 3. They were filming there back in September, which was in block 1, I believe, which means it was probably episode 1 or 2. We think they did a night shoot at the location as well, because it looks like they had like a lighting rig set up outdoors. So they could have filmed outdoors, but we should note that the Hatfield House has also been used for scenes for the men's club, and it could also be a new location. But I bet they are going to return to the Trowbridge Ball, and that would just be so fitting. And if there's an outdoor moment at the Trowbridge Ball, how scandalous.
Kind of echoing what happens here with Daphne and Simon. I'd be so up for that. So fingers crossed we'll return for, you know, it's a good place to kind of get a little bit too het up, a little bit too jealous. We could have a little jealous Colin moment on the side. I'd be signing up for that.
For sure.
But back to the story. All the Featheringtons are arriving together, and Portia instantly takes the opportunity to kind of throw Marina at Lord Rutledge as Pen kind of watches on helplessly. We also get a moment from one of my personal favourite ships. Lecky, I think you're on board this ship with me, aren't you?
Yes, I love Albion, Finch, Mr. Cheeseman.
Veg, I'm
adorable.
unsure.
Love him. Love their coupling.
Yeah, I'm happy to support it. Personally, I hate cheese, but, you know, everyone's got their own interests.
Says the person called Veg.
What I love is when we first meet him and he comes in with the daisies for Philippa. He's allergic to them, but he brought them for her anyway. Come on. That's so sweet.
And fans, their wedding is the only happy wedding we've seen in the show so far, just so you know.
I also just wanted to take a moment here to note that there's a scene between Portia and Archibald where she's kind of like hounding him about the Finch situation, and Archibald shows no interest in marrying off his daughters and says they can even wait till next season for all he cares. And this makes me kind of wonder, piggybacking on the earlier scene where we see Colin and Archibald standing together at the boxing match, and yet they're kind of on opposite sides of the match, if Colin will be Archibald's opposite in other ways as the head of the Featherington household, because it seems like matchmaker Colin will be in full force next season. So it could be possible that he helps arrange Prudence's match too and gets them all married, all the Featherington girls.
That's so interesting. And it wouldn't be out of place as well, because you've got like Daphne. I forget sometimes how much of a role Daphne played in Marina's story in series 1, and I think like as well as having the unrelated subplots, they do get the leads to have their own sort of little other subplots as well, just to round them out as characters. So yeah, it definitely happens.
And we do have in the books, there's a little bit of matchmaker Colin, even with Cantony in their book.
He's a bit of a matchmaker with everyone, which is something that everyone kind of was a bit disappointed to see him not really participate as much. And you know what? And then the season 3 synopsis came out, and it's why my first reaction was just laughter to that synopsis, because of course matchmaker Colin would come out for his own wife. Well done. So if you don't know, on this podcast we're all big fans of the Prudank theory. We want Prudence and Danquist together forever. So fingers crossed he makes
that happen,
a better lead of the Featherington household than those of ones past, and puts his matchmaking to good use, including with himself.
I'm obsessed with the fact that the whole main theory behind Prudank is that Dankworth is described as an idiot. And we're like, it's perfect.
Well, they were also seen together by a fan during that first shoot they had at the Old Royal Naval Chapel. And also, and then at the second one, we actually saw them going down the stairs together.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and I thought it was Colin.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've received a couple other tiny clues, but
we're all on board the Prudank train. But forget them, put Finch out of your head, put Prudank out your head. This is the moment we've been waiting for. It's Barb time. Pen is reliably, bless her, quietly waiting on the edge of the dance floor. She's trying to make eye contact with Marina and send her some, sympathetic, encouraging glances to Marina, because Marina's still stuck with Rutledge.
She doesn't know how her life is about to change.
Our lives were about to change, I think.
Yeah.
This, we'll get into it, but this was a formative moment for many within the fandom. Because who slinks up and slips behind a pen? Mr. Colin Bridgerton himself. You know, Pen kind of jumps, you would, wouldn't you? She kind of jumps at his presence because he does kind of get very, very, very close up to her. We'll put many visuals on social media for you so you can enjoy this moment with us. And then they have one of their most infamous exchanges in the whole show.
Can we do a reenactment?
Who has a more masculine presence?
I think I have a more Okay, okay. Okay, I'm going to channel audiobook Colin for this. Our host looks a bit fussy. Do you think if he goes to bed we all have to leave? It's lucky the lady produced an heir before the old earl croaked, no?
Lucky indeed. But do you not think the boy bears a passing resemblance to Lady Trowbridge's footman?
Penelope? What's a Barb? Yeah!
Well done. Thank you. That was beautiful.
So we have the origin of what many a Polin fan like to call the gossip boner.
Yes.
Gossip boner. our holy moment, our guiding light.
He's into it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't say that he's not into this moment.
He is so into it.
This is kind of like a return to the scene where they're discussing the bad poetry, where he's surprised by her.
Yes.
But yeah, he's feeling something.
Yeah.
Oh, he's feeling many things, I'm sure.
So it's always great when you have good gossip chemistry with people. I think Obs and I, on one of our... on maybe our first ever trip to Spoons together, we both slowly discovered after a couple of cocktails that we were both a little bitchy as well. But just the thing with, we are bitch. But anyway, this is a society in this sort of in the time where you couldn't really just be bitchy. Like now it's kind of like a thing and there's TikToks about it, but you couldn't just, it was sort of a lack of propriety. So
Scandalous.
I think he's just taken aback.
Yeah, what she is saying is scandalous. Ladies are not supposed to talk like this or even know about things like this. The things that she's implying that she knows about.
And I love that she took that risk and put herself out there like that for him almost. Like, I know, she's a bit careless overall, I think we all say. Like, with the whole Lady Whistledown thing, she's not the most careful, but it does strike me as, like, the fact that she's put herself out there like this.
But it is their story that, you know, being around him makes her that little bit braver, that little bit more daring. But what I will say is, excuse me, Colin, why are you walking around talking about ladies producing heirs? Scandalous indeed. So he set the tone, you know, he knew what he was talking about, so.
And Penelope, who may not even know all the mechanics, has overheard people talking about, you know, affairs and scandals enough that she's able to come up with this quip and make this joke. Another little sign that she's Lady Whistledown, I think. And also, just the fact that she's the one who breaks this gaze. Sigh of all sighs.
So let's talk about the gaze, because he says it to her, they look at each other, and I think it's 5 seconds, which doesn't sound like a long time, but if you sit there and count it out,
Oh, that's ages.
it's a long gaze, and they just kind of look at each other. It's such a charged moment. Probably the only sexually charged moment that we've had so far. Would we agree?
Yes.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's all we've got.
You know, he's fully in it. Things are happening. But I think if you watch her face very carefully, I think it's fascinating because she's kind of like has this happy, awestruck look on her face, and then it falls. And I think she doesn't know what to do with that moment at all. I don't think she's ready for that kind of situation between them. I don't think she knows how to handle it. And yeah, like you say, she's the one to break it.
Yeah. Tragedy.
I don't think she feels uncomfortable. I don't think he's making her feel uncomfortable. I don't think that's what's happening at all. I just think that she has kind of put herself out there a little bit, got something back and just doesn't quite know what to do with that.
Yeah, she's unprepared and unfamiliar, and she did not see this coming.
So this is a very important gaze, and we had the latest sort of bracket voting tournament on the subreddit was the platonic gaze thing, which was sort of ironic in terms of the gazes were not platonic, and that was the point of the game. So voting on just looks that were exchanged
From Colin to Pen.
Yeah, from Colin. So moments like, you know, when he stares at her coming across at the race.
When he returns home.
Yeah.
When he returns home from his travels and they have that.
Hard Eyes.
So that was our runner-up, right? Returning home from the travels.
Yep, Hard Eyes scene was runner-up.
Yeah. And this moment was the winner. But oh my gosh, was it a close call between that and returning home. And in the end, I think So I got my boyfriend to vote for What a Barb, but then he later asked me to show him the 2 clips, and he actually preferred Turning Home saying,
Oh my god.
this is just for you, listener. It was all a fraud, so What a Barb won, but really, did it win?
No.
I would have done anything to sabotage that vote anyway.
It was the rightful winner, and I also say, I think on Twitter they had a similar, like, best Polin scenes, and What a Barb also won that. I will just say it's won numerous fandom circles.
The once and future king.
Polls.
I think why we like this so much, I mean, there's many reasons, obviously, you know, it's fun to see them, but I think this is the hope that we need through these difficult times.
Yeah.
But I think this has something that no other scene between them really has. And
baby.
when she quips back at him, like we say, he's very impressed, obviously. But I think what's interesting is that it's like you said, like we saw it in the Wretched Sonnet scene as well, is it proves that he is attracted to that side of her, of her personality, and which therefore means that he is attracted to the alter ego.
Yes.
And so it kind of raises the question of, you know, when he finds out that she's Lady Whistledown, I'm sure there's going to be many, many emotions for many, many reasons. But the lust is going to be there, as we know from, you know, book spoilers, the carriage.
Yeah, and that's how we get to the carriage.
And the Colonel is here, right? So I think there's many reasons we all like it, but it's that combination, it sows the seeds of the future a little bit.
I will say just an extra point about this scene is that the extra who walks through the frame during the scene is public enemy number 1, in my opinion.
My villain origin
Colin
story.
Get one lusty gaze, and an extra walks through it, and I could rant about this forever, but moving on. Fun fact, if you haven't read Inside Bridgerton, this scene was Luke Newton's audition scene for Colin. He initially auditioned for the role of the Duke, but he decided that he actually identified more with Colin, and they brought him back in and they had him read for this scene, and he said that he, quote, did the same scene 5 or 6 different ways and with 5 different intentions behind it, and he said it was the What a Barb scene, and when it was time for them to do the real thing, it was, quote, a surreal moment. But if I could ask Luke Newton any question besides what he thinks Colin wrote about in his initial letters to Penn, and whether Colin may or may not have been unintentionally romantic, I'd love to know what the different intentions he did for this scene, what they were, and which one was selected for the final Barb scene that we actually see on camera, though I bet it's basically what we can infer here, where Colin approaches Penn in the hopes of discussing Marina initially and is again surprised by Penn in a way he hasn't felt before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that this won him the role, to be honest, because, you know, we talked a lot about the nuance that he offers in his acting, and I think that exercise would have been fascinating to kind of see. But yeah, this is a scene that brought us our Colin, so it's even more sacred to us. And he plays it, they both play it absolutely perfectly. Interesting what you said, like, actually, just about how his intention originally was to kind of segue into Marina. And you do think, what on earth was going through his head? You know, when Penn turns away, he seems to catch himself a little bit, and they have this kind of moment where they both shake out this gaze.
Yes.
You know, they've both been looking at a red-headed baby, which is very, you know, bit of foreshadowing, but very scandalous topic of conversation. I don't know how much he realises is improper, but he kind of catches himself and pulls himself out. It's also very notable because he uses her full name instead of her nickname.
Yes.
He says Penelope, and you'll notice
He only does that in a few scenes.
he only does it in a couple, but we will track it. There's not many to track though. He does it on a very rare occasion that she's always penned to him, and he usually says it when there's some sort of loaded reason behind him saying it. So yeah, she gets the full name Penelope here, and the way he delivers it is just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Scandal central.
I love how he says Penn, but I'm going to die whenever he says Penelope in season 3, because he does do it during these charged moments.
Yeah, she's going to be Penelope a lot more in season 3, I think. That is for sure.
And in a good way, because fans of the book will know that some of the Penelopes in the book are not our favourite moments of book Colin, but I think that in the series it will be played very nicely.
We're going to get some. Now, we said that Beans wasn't here with us today, but because this is such a momentous part of Polin history, we couldn't let this moment go without getting, you know, I feel that Beans is our resident philosopher. She offers insights that we could not possibly aspire to. So Beans, from the future, the past, or wherever you may be in this world, phone in now and give us your thoughts.
Hello, dear listeners. It's Beans, your favorite little jumpin' bean. What a barb, what a babe, what a scene. I mean, obviously it's important. It gave us our podcast name, so that's great. My thoughts are these. 1, did not rewatch this episode this week, so I'm only speaking from memory. But if I remember correctly, Colin gave Miss Penn the look of, damn girl, you are just more than I thought you could ever be. And I hate to bring it up again, but what is this feeling so sudden and new? Jonathan Bailey. He had a little tickle in his pickle. He had a little tickle in his soul for Penn in that very scene. And Penn was flustered because she was like, oh my gosh, more than 2 seconds of contact. Hot diggity damn. That was like the budding of something inside the two of them. And, good on them. Good on them. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you, Beans, for those moving words. And that sadly concludes the end of our beloved Barb scene.
Right, okay, so that's it, right, guys? The podcast. We've done.
The podcast is done.
We're done with the podcast now.
Yeah, we can pack up.
Okay,
go
great.
home.
Well, it's been real, guys. Nice to meet you.
See you
all,
December
and
14th.
I'll see you in December.
Our work here is done. No, we've got plenty of shouting at Colin to do over the next few episodes and plenty of despairing and plenty of bows ahead. We're not going anywhere, sadly. But yes, the Barb scene ends tragic. Colin segues the conversation back to Marina, joy of joys. And then Penn makes a bit of a fatal flaw here, I'd say, because she comments that the only thing Marina is interested in is a swift rescue indeed.
Yep. Here she activates Hero Colin.
You're just tempting Hero Colin. Yeah.
Yep. Hero Colin
Come on,
is
Penn.
activated. And yeah, poor Penelope pushes him toward her inadvertently.
Come on, do you not know this spoiler by now?
And he's going to do like how she sort of set that up this series, and then the reverse is going to happen in series 3.
Oh yeah, he's going to be setting them up left, right and centre.
They're both foiling themselves. They're both playing themselves.
So Penn throws Colin at Marina accidentally, and then Colin swoops in, rescues Marina. They have a lovely chat. I might be evil for saying this, but I actually think it's very sweet when they start dancing and swooping around the dance floor together. I know that that's a traitorous thing to say, but I think it's sweet. And Daphne and the prince kind of watch, and Daphne says, my brother Colin certainly knows how to make things memorable, doesn't he indeed?
Yeah, it's nice that Daphne reacts, and I'm sure Penelope is somewhere as well,
Watching.
silently sobbing.
Do you think she's watching it happen? Do you think she's wanting
I think she
to
is.
scream, throw herself into the abyss?
Yeah, the only justice will be if we get the inverse of this scene in season 3, where Penn maybe gets swept away and enjoys dancing with Sibling or another suitor, and Colin is left watching her from the shadows, as we mentioned.
Yes.
Not that I want him to suffer. It'll probably just happen.
You know, but if it occurs along the way, it's like what Veg, you said, you know, she set Colin up accidentally. Colin's going to do the same for her. Let's see how he likes it.
Yeah, then we'll laugh about it in a few years.
You know, there's some main plot shenanigans. Duels are organised, people are caught, all that kind of stuff. And Anthony starts to take Daphne home, but he stops to let Colin know that they're off, and he instructs him to look after Violet in his absence. Colin has this really interesting moment where he kind of looks over to Daphne, and you can tell that Colin knows that something's actually wrong. You know, I think Anthony says that she has a headache, but Colin, and it's something that we'll see in a few episodes with Daphne and Colin, but I think he's very good at actually reading Daphne's mood in particular. I think he's quite perceptive.
100%.
I know that fans might not always agree that because he sometimes bungles it with Penn, but as a character, he is pretty perceptive with people's emotions.
He is so perceptive.
And you see a tiny bit of
Yeah,
that.
he's great at reading other people. He's just not good at processing his own emotions and his own thoughts. But he's really great at reading other people. And I also just love that he's just hanging out with his mom in the corner of this ball and laughing at her bad drunken jokes.
Yeah, where is it? She says sham and pain. Yeah, so a sweet little moment, but we're going to leave the Trowbridge Ball together actually, and we're going to zoom over to Featherington House. Penn is having a bit of a night of it now. She's sat in bed as Marina's kind of pacing around the room. Marina's all hyped up. She's talking about how excited she is about Colin. I think it's heartbreaking because Marina starts listing all of Colin's qualities.
As if she doesn't know.
You know, she's like, he's so kind and funny. He's going to make a great father. And Penelope must just be like, I fucking know this. This is not new information. And Penn just kind of looks, she has this like dead look inside, which I think every Polin fan can identify very strongly with. But you know, she kind of tries to pull her shit together a little bit. She tries to dissuade Marina, and she insists that surely Colin is too young for marriage and he wouldn't dream of proposing anytime soon. I mean, we all know that Colin would never have a chaotic proposal. Surely not. That's out of character. Surely our sweet young Colin is not going to propose anytime soon, so we can all pack up and go home then, Veg.
I like this look I like the hairstyle. She's got her hair in a sort of a side braid.
She looks gorgeous.
Yeah, she's having a shit night now.
She's ready for bed.
But she looks beautiful while she's doing it.
She does. And what I find interesting here is she's in her nightgown. She's looking quite like, I guess when you're in your nightgown, that's as sort of like undressed as you can get.
Yeah,
really.
vulnerable.
And quite raw, yeah. And then Marina in this scene is still wearing her tiara from...
Yeah, that's a good observation.
From the ball, so... She's almost like wearing just a crown, and
Yes,
she's
the victor.
You know, in this situation.
And she stood up, and Pen's kind of sat down, ready for it. And there's kind of that. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's a good observation.
She's won.
So Marina kind of continues on, and you know, she makes the comment that Colin isn't like other young men who play games, and she actually ironically mentions that Colin rescued her at the ball, which, as we just pointed out,
Poor Pen.
that was something that Pen actually did. But I think what is important to remember is Marina isn't doing this in a spiteful way.
Yeah, I was going to say,
at this point,
she
Marina still doesn't know.
Yeah, and Penelope is good at hiding those aspects of herself. It's only until really late on that Marina picks up on it.
Yeah, they're friends at this point. If Penelope had mentioned beforehand that she was in love with Colin, maybe Marina wouldn't have perceived him so heavily, but she has no idea.
It's kind of gone past that point now.
Yeah, Pen just received some great news here where Marina says that, you know, if she marries Colin, she'll be able to stay in town, and that since Pen and Eloise are so close, they'll all practically be sisters. So, great news. Not the worst fate imaginable for Pen to become Colin's sister, and worse.
What?
No, you can't. No.
It's going to work out for Kate and Sue's too.
That is a cursed.
Yeah, worse than never having him, but yeah, becoming his sister. And then Marina also notes that Colin is clearly eager for such an outcome. So, yeah, poor Pen.
Now, if I didn't live with housemates, I would scream, because that is the worst thing I think I've ever heard anyone say to me. I'm like, you can't say a sentence like they would be, oh my god, Penelope would be Colin's sister. Cursed. And I know it's a motif that's kind of going to come back up to infantilise Pen in future episodes, but it's cursed. Well, what a fantastic night. Marina eventually, you know, heads off, and Pen is left in her room. Bless her, she absolutely panics at the thought of everything that's just happened.
Yeah.
It's like her worst nightmare has just kind of come to fruition.
Yeah. And the night couldn't possibly get worse, right?
It couldn't, no, because, you know, if there's one thing we know about Penelope with the Bridgertons, it's that she handles one catastrophe at a time and never invites them on the same night. But she has this, like, awful panic moment where she's like, you know, she puts her hand on her chest, she's starting to, like, hyperventilate, she jumps up, starts pacing through the room, again, looking pretty gorgeous in that nightgown. Let's pray for a return to the nightgowns in season 3.
Yes, Colin would love this look.
He would be all over. We wouldn't be having an issue if he was in the room at this time. Marina would be gone. But don't worry, your night can't get possibly worse, because we've got someone throwing pebbles at your window. Veg, I'm going to come to your house and do this one day.
Great, can't wait.
But is it Colin? No, sadly not. It's Eloise, with classic Eloise Bridgerton timing. She turns up to Pen's house and she wants to chat. Pen, again, not in the mood, but she goes down and opens the door and just kind of gets this, like, whirlwind of excited Eloise energy, which we do love, but sometimes there's a time and place for it.
Yeah, read the room.
And Ella's just kind of talking mile a minute about her Whistledown theories, just the topic that I'm sure Pen wants to talk about right now.
Yeah.
And she tries to shrug Elle off. Elle is not reading Penelope's face, which at this point you can see she's trying to keep her shit together and is about to break. And, you know, we witness that last shred of sanity absolutely snap into as she loses the composure and she bursts out at Eloise. She says, Eloise, I do not care. People have real problems, mature problems that have nothing to do with the secret identity of some silly writer. And that is such a slap in the face to Elle. You know, and you can't blame Elle. She doesn't know that Pen's had a shit night. And also, Pen doesn't care about who Lady Whistledown is, because she knows who it is. And if anything, she wants to throw Elle off the scent. So it's just all a bit too much for her, I think. And Elle kind of, you know, bounces back at her a little bit and makes a comment like, you're so mature now. But you can tell she's really hurt by it. Mm-hmm. And she says that Penelope surely doesn't care about marriage. And suddenly she says, what if I do? Mm-hmm. Worst thing to do. I mean, if there's one thing she cares about right now. And then she delivers a pretty cutting line. She says, I cannot expect you to understand. Not everyone can be a pretty Bridgerton. And you feel sorry for Elle because she's kind of taking the brunt of all of this built up frustration, and it just kind of throws out. And this is their first big fight. And, you know, Eloise turns. She doesn't, you know, she's silenced, which is quite the feat to silence Elle.
And it highlights a lot of the tensions that are eventually going to lead to their fallout.
Yeah.
I know that the fallout was the fact that Pen was Lady Whistledown, but, you know, there is this definitely contributes, and there is this underlying tension and a misunderstanding. So, you know, she's saying you don't care about marriage, but, you know, she does, and she doesn't understand that.
That specific line is a continuation of that conversation they have in episode 2, where Eloise announces that they have accomplishments to acquire. Clearly, Pen has other aspirations, and it was marriage, and that marriage with Colin has just been wiped off the table for her. And it's so obvious that Pen regrets what she said, but she's just in this moment of despair and just can't control herself.
Yeah. Do you think this is the first time, because Eloise looks so taken aback, and what's interesting is she doesn't argue back. I mean, she kind of throws a line, but it definitely doesn't devolve into that insult kind of fest that happens at the end of 208. But do you think this is the first time Pen has ever snapped at her?
Maybe.
Yeah, it could be.
We were talking about that during the courting scene too, where she makes the joke about the poetry. I think one of us said something about how younger Pen, she was more reserved and didn't really speak up around the Bridgerton. So this might be the first time she's doing this kind of with Eloise too.
Yeah. So she's surprised both Bridgertons tonight. Well done, Pen. Probably not in the way she wants to. But like you say, she clearly regrets it, but the damage is done. Let's just leave that kind of heartbreaking moment between Penelope's and try and lighten the mood a little bit. I mean, as light as you can get, because, you know, Anthony's organising a duel to shoot his best friend, etc, etc. Yeah. I always feel bad that Benedict is suddenly just going to have to be the Viscount now. Just, you know, on a moment's notice. But the brothers are interrupted because there's murmurings in the hallway, so they go investigate. And it's a little tiny scene, but it's, I think, probably one of Colin's best moments. Would we agree?
Iconic.
Lovely moment.
It's the best, isn't it? So they open the door and they look, and it's basically Colin and Violet staggering through the hallway. So if you remember, Anthony gave strict instructions to Colin. He was like, look after mother, I'm going home, she's your deal now. Colin clearly took that to mean get her absolutely fucking plastered, and you know, he took it to heart.
To be fair, she was already drinking heavily before
she's already on the way
delivered that line.
Colin was like, let's just stick with this. But it's very nice because, you know, They stumble in together, they're laughing. It's like you said, Lecky, they were having a nice time together. And, you know, Violet's kind of like doting on him. He kind of charms her a little bit. She calls him impertinent, but it's really affectionate between the two. So Violet heads off to bed, none the wiser that, you know, the duel shenanigans are going to go on. And Anthony and Benedict try and get his attention. And Colin turns and we get one of his best ever lines. Lek, do you want to do the honours?
Good God, did someone die? That's not a good rendition of Colin, but yeah.
God, it's like Luke Newton's in the room. That was transcendent, Lek. I mean, I don't think we've got anything to say about this other than
10 out of 10.
Great moment.
Exquisite. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
One of these days I'm going to do a game to figure out what their best lines are, and I think that'll be up there. So a little bit of Colin humour. We love to see it. We'd love to see more of it in season 3. So the older two piss off to go, you know, reenact Hamilton, and Colin is left at home. Daphne is pacing upstairs in her room. She's clearly very stressed because, you know, it's all going to go to shit with Simon and Anthony. And I think she decides that her best bet to resolve everything is to head downstairs to seek out Colin and try and sort the situation out. Colin is drinking in Anthony's study, and Daphne kind of bursts through the doors and demands to know where he's gone.
For book fans, this whole sequence is actually kind of similar to how it plays out in the book, where Daphne specifically goes and seeks out Colin when this goes down because she thinks that, quote, Colin might come around to her way of thinking and that she can persuade him to take her to the duel. Yeah. And in the books, he actually says, quote, I'll help you, Daph, you know I'd do anything for you, which is very sweet.
Oh, he's the good brother.
But yeah, in the show, Colin, he's not quite as forthcoming, is he?
Yeah, I think he's trying to be the older brother a little bit, you know. Anthony and Benedict both out the house. I think the things he says sound more like Anthony, I think, than they do himself, almost in a way, you know, and he's repeating things about, surely you know, you want him to pay. But I think Daphne knows that she can break through to him. And she points out very rightly that it's her life and she should get a say. And there's this moment where the last shot we get of that scene is it focusing on Colin, and you can see that he's very conflicted as he's trying to figure out what the best thing to do is.
Yeah, this is hero Colin again. This hero Colin activated,
absolutely,
trying to decide what to do, how to resolve this situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. What the right thing to do is. And I like that he grants her, and it's very similar to in the book, I'd like that he grants her that independence. You know, he listens to her. She does break through to him when she's pointing out that it's her life. And that kind of breaks through, and, you know, he's very close with his siblings, and in the books he's particularly close with Daphne. In the show, I think we see that in a few episodes' time, that relationship. But all is well. She breaks through to him. They head off. We get a nice shot of them on horseback as they zoom over to the duel, and all goes well.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, Daphne nearly gets shot. I just want to point out, this is not Polin, but I think it gets very brushed over that Anthony was fully committed to shooting and murdering his best friend.
Yeah.
Those were the times.
Boys.
Boys.
Am I right?
Indeed. So the last shot of the episode after the duel's all resolved and all has gone well is the classic ABC lineup that is often referred to as the Jonas Bros. This is their little group shot of them.
Oh,
And thus concludes the episode.
lovely. It's a cute episode, and I think that, obviously we've got What a Barb, but yeah, they're both in it together, and they've got some nice moments as well. And you've got Pen as well. You can see her subtly included on the edges of shots as well. We didn't mention them all, but if you look through, and if you're a listener, if you're on your 3rd or 4th or 5th or 10th rewatch, then take a moment to see if you could spot Pen's little head a foot below all the other heads in the room.
But I think what's interesting with that is we catch her watching certain storylines.
Yeah.
So we catch her watching Marina and Philippa, but you don't see her in anything that really goes down with like Daphne, Simon and Anthony. Like she misses all of that because there's a bit of scandal. But that scandal never really comes out to the forefront.
Yeah.
So I think she very cleverly isn't a part of those storylines, hence why it doesn't get reported. Another little hint.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been a big episode.
Yes.
A lot has gone down. Lucky, take us through the whistle up and the whistle downs of the ep.
I'm sure this will come as a shock to our listeners, but the What a Barb scene is our whistle up for this week.
What's a Barb?
Iconic. And our whistle down. In any other episode, our whistle down award would have gone to the extra who walks through the What a Barb scene. But because
Ruins it.
to be a Polin fan is to know pain, our actual whistle down is the scene where Pen ends up having a near panic attack in her room at the thought of becoming Colin's sister and witnessing his fairy tale happy ending with her cousin.
Cursed, absolutely cursed. I'm not saying the boy deserves to suffer, but I'm saying that Pen has suffered. And one day he will understand what that feels like. God, that sounds so mean. I love Colin more than anything. But
We don't want him to suffer. It will probably happen. I feel like we keep repeating the same refrain, but it is what it is.
True enough.
Yeah, look.
And any listeners who are on the Colin Drossy-Freer train, I'm right there with you, buddy. Don't listen to them. I'm on your side. Men are trash and Colin Drossy-Freer.
But all I'm saying is if this story means that we get a lovely scene of him in his nightgown, maybe it's not a nightgown, what
His
is men wear?
nightgown
His
and night clothes.
Night shirt.
night clothes, a nightshirt slightly opened, and if he is also in desperate panic pacing back and forth in his room, I'm not going to be angry about it. That's all I'm saying.
Kind of like in the most recent Emma, where Knightley comes home and he's like tearing off his clothes because he's just so frustrated.
That is such a good
Chef's
scene.
kiss.
Yeah,
Like,
this era of this, stuff set in this period of time, they love a good frustrated nightgown scene. We've seen it in both series of Bridgerton. We're going to see it.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting if we see
It's going to happen.
the frustrated
the inversion of it.
the scene, but with a male lead, frustrated in his night clothes, stomping around.
Nice. Well, what an episode. What a bar.
Indeed. How are we rating this? Where does this fall on our Polin rankings?
So out of 12 bows, the fewer bows the better, 0 being ideal. This would probably be a 4 for me. I will say that the Barb scene does a lot of heavy lifting here because this is a very painful episode. Marina and Colin's storyline is rapidly getting underway, but there's just this glimmer, a moment that suggests he's really meant to be with Pen, and we love that scene.
And I think we do get, we get the Penelope's breakup, which is very sad, but I think it's good for both of them to have those kind of moments together. We get some nice sibling moments. We go to a little wrestling match. Who doesn't want to see Will win against whoever he was winning against? I'm going to agree. I'm going to go 5. I'm going to go 5 just because there's slightly too much pain, but not as much pain as what lies ahead of us. Veg, how do you feel?
0 bows.
Are you a Barbie girl in a Barbie world?
I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world.
0. Is this
0
perfection?
Okay, I understand all the Marina scenes. To be honest, didn't even notice those. I was so caught up in the haze, in the lavender haze. Oh, what a Barb. No thoughts, just Barb.
Of the scandalous Trowbridge Ball.
I support your rating 100%. I mean, it's not my rating, but I support it. I'm behind you all the way.
To be fair, it is much like Pirate Colin. There are certain things that have been our guiding light, our lighthouse and rough seas, the things that have it's been many months of pain and suffering and waiting and torment, and certain things keep us going, and I think everyone can agree that this is one of them.
Yes.
And so we thank you for your service, dear Barb. We thank you for your service, episode 4. Thank you very much for joining us. I don't know if Beans will have any other thoughts, but if she does, I don't know, I'm looking to the skies. Like she's gonna be a voice for her.
Because she's dearly departed, if you recall.
She's dearly departed. She's dearly departed wherever she is. I don't know if she has any thoughts, but we'll chuck them in here.
No thoughts, just Bob.
No thoughts, just Barb's. But that's it for this episode. Thank you for joining. We hope that you'll join us next week when actually I think we'll be taking a bit of a mid-season break from our rewatch. You know, we need to gear up for everything that's going to come our way in the following half of the season when shit will really start to hit the fan. So keep an eye out for what we're going to do next week as a slightly different episode. But in the meantime, where can everyone find us, Lek?
You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram and TikTok.
And you can find us discussing What a Barb and other lovely moments all over the subreddit, reddit.com/r/Polin bridgerton.
Mostly What a Barb. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Mostly what
No
a
thoughts,
Barb.
just Bob.
But thank you very much. See you guys later.
See ya.
Happy birthday to your dog again, Lecky.
Oh,
I hope
And to
you have a
you.
wonderful time celebrating. And to, I mean, yeah, but your birthday's gone now. It's in the past,
Yeah, it's
isn't
fine.
it? We need to move on. Beans, see us out.
Das violin. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.